God, I pray that you would get me out of the way, that you would just speak truth to us tonight, encourage us, give us life. Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to meet here tonight, get in your word, and just know more of you. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks. Well, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Andy, and I'm one of the guys here on staff at New Life. And I don't know about you guys, but I love spring. Spring is absolutely my favorite season because it leads into summer. Especially this spring, it's been stinking so warm outside. It's 80 degrees, and it really reminds me of the beach. And I think I've mentioned this before in sermons, but I absolutely love the beach. And I have an event that is happening this spring, which I'm really excited about. On Cinco de Mayo, we're having a New Life volleyball tournament. On the sand or in the beach volleyball courts over on West Campus. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be legendary. But I have kind of some bad news and some good news tonight. For those of you who know me, it's kind of an end of a chapter in my life, and so I just I guess I'll break the good news first. This will be the last sermon where I mention me wanting to get married. So that's the good news. That's the good news. But the bad news is that this will be the last sermon that I mention me wanting to get married. So, with that said, for all of you guys who have been along with me on this long and arduous journey and if you spent about 10 minutes with me, you know that I've wanted to get married. If you spent longer than that, then I officially apologize to you for talking about it in every sermon and probably in every conversation that we've had. But I am getting married in 47 days, and I'm pretty jacked about that. It's been on my mind a lot. And one thing you do when you get married is, what you should do, little advice there, is what you should do is you should get premarital counseling. And I've had the pleasure of doing premarital counseling with Ed and Tammy. And they've talked a lot about conflict and conflict resolution. And unfortunately, Felicia, my beautiful bride-to-be in the second row here, we have some conflict. And it always seems that our conflict happens literally minutes before we make it to Ed and Tammy's. Like every time we have this big blowout, like the day before or the night before or on the drive over there. And one of these blowouts it was my fault. It was my fault. Here's a little advice. I want to give all of the, possible, all the bachelors in the house and all the guys who are single, all the guys who are engaged, all the guys who are eventually going to be husbands. Here is a piece of advice from me to you. It's not a good idea to go to the Oval, take your shirt off, and try to get a base tan for your beach wedding. Just don't think about it. Don't even think about thinking about it. Just don't do it. Just not a good idea. So just a little piece of advice from me to you. You can write that down, put it in your memory bank. So anyways, the reason that kind of arose is because I love the Oval. I don't know about you guys. I love it. It's just crazy. It's chaos personified. There's so much action. There's so much activity. And on top of that, I love to people watch. Who here really loves to people watch? I think Caleb asked this a couple weeks ago. But I love to people watch. Love to observe and kind of see what they're doing. And I kind of came across a couple characters when, I was trying to get my base tan for my wedding. First, you have the intellectuals who are kind of in the circle, and they're all concocting revolution. Then you have the political activists who are all about campaigns or about some cause. Then you have the tightrope walkers, which I learned this week is actually slackline. Is that how you say it? Slack? Not schlack. All right, so there's no CH, it's just slack. All right, I was putting a little bit too much German emphasis on that. But, so slacklining. Then you have kind of like the party girls who are all talking about their weekend. They're talking about, Billy who, like, he didn't show up last week and they're mad at them. And maybe like, Johnny is going to come over with their dog. And they're just like all excited and they're gossiping and they're just like, this is going to happen this weekend. They're talking about going to, I don't know, like Consuelos or something like that. Then you have the former 3-star athlete guys who have their shirts off like me on the oval, and they're going and they're like throwing the football and making sure that they're like making the catches and like showing off all their muscles, and they like throw a pass a little bit too far and then they go and like dive into the girls. Am I the only guy who like did this when I was younger? I'm the only guy, Dustin, or did you do it as well? I'm the only guy? Okay. Just to make sure. All right, well, it's in the past, baby. It's in the past. Then, obviously, you have the hellfire preachers that we've all come to know and come to love. And then we have the students who, they're dressed in, these are the interesting characters. I'm sure some of you guys in here are these students. They're in full, like, jeans, like, long-sleeve shirts, and they're out there and they've got books everywhere. And you know that they've just spent about 10 hours in a lab, and they just wanted to come outside for about 5 minutes, enjoy the sun before they have to go back into lab. But they have all their lab stuff on, and they can't, and they're just like burning up in the middle of 80 degrees. And then lastly, and all of that is, President Gee and the boosters and the trustees in suits talking about what is going to happen on this beautiful campus. And they're just standing, just walking, moseying right through the middle of all of it. But one thing that I think I've observed in being on the Oval is that everybody is leveraging their life for a cause. Everybody is leveraging their life for a cause. And I think that goes for all of us here. Every single person in this room is leveraging their life for some cause. So the question is, and this is the first one in your bulletin, is what is your cause? What is your cause? When I was thinking about, how to answer that question, or even, how do we know what our cause is? I think there's 4 things that I thought of. A cause, when you are thinking about a cause, you're consumed with, it consumes your thoughts, consumes your time, consumes your energy, and consumes your money. And I have another question. Like, have you ever been obsessed with something? Totally obsessed. Where, you can't stop thinking about it. Like, it consumes all your time. You're like, you are running from one place to the next just to somehow attain it. Or all of your energy, like you wake up in the morning and that's what you're thinking about. You go to sleep at night, that's what you're thinking about. You wake up the next morning and that's what you're worrying about. Or all of your resources, all your money is going, to get this somehow. For me, my cause lately, obviously, has been wedding planning. And I don't know if your cause is wedding planning. There's probably only just one more guy in here, I think, that has that same cause. But it could be anything. It could be a grade. It could be a sporting event. It could be, the job search. It could be a relationship, or even the idea of getting married in the future. It could be, X amount of things. But for me, it's wedding planning. Like my thoughts, my time, my energy, especially my money, all going to wedding planning. And it kind of hit hit a climax on Wednesday when I spent an hour and a half looking for flower girl shoes that we never found. We went to Polaris and we would go to one store, to the next store, to another store. We went to this one store and they had like these shoes we wanted, but they didn't have the sizes, and there, look at the toddler shoes, and the toddler shoes were like, they were jank. They were straight up awful. And I'm like, at this point, I'm about to like start throwing and chucking shoes at people, and I walk out, and I'm like, I'm so upset. But anyways, my whole spring break was writing vows. It was writing a ceremony. It was deciding who's going to stay where and where they're going to go and how it's going to happen, and detail after detail after detail after detail. And I wake up in the morning, and that's what I'm thinking about. And when I'm going to sleep at night, that's what I'm thinking about. And everything is all just focused on this wedding. Trust me, if you guys haven't gone through it yet, you will. And, a couple years down the line, you'll probably be like, man, I know exactly what he's talking about. But a couple weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago, like I said earlier, we're doing premarital counseling, and Felicia and I had an opportunity to hang out with Ed and Tammy, and we went to Texas Roadhouse. We get out of the car, we're walking to Texas Roadhouse, and the entire sky is just black, just absolutely black, and then the sirens come off. I don't know about you guys, but I love when the sirens go off, because it's like there's like an emergency, there's like imminent danger. I feel like I'm in like a World War II bunker in like London, and I'm getting bombed. Like, I just love the sirens. There's something about it. I'm like, this is awesome. I don't know, we could get killed tonight. But like, we're in Texas, but for some reason we're like, let's get some peanuts and bread at Texas Roadhouse. So we go to Texas Roadhouse, and the lights go off. We're watching everything on satellite TV, and then the satellite goes off. Tammy gets a phone call, and her friend's like, they just saw tornadoes on the corner of Polaris and 71. And she's like, where are you guys at? We're at the Texas Roadhouse on the corner of Polaris and 71. Like, wow, great. And so I'm kind of like joking with Ed. I'm like, well, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down with like peanuts and bread, man. It's going to be great. But something dawned on me in that moment. What dawned on me is that Felicia and I had spent the whole day obsessed about getting errands done for the wedding. And literally in an instant, if a tornado struck, like all that cause could have been taken in an instant, just like that. Like Felicia could have, I know I'm not trying to be morbid, but Felicia could have gotten killed. I could have died. We both could have died. And all that time spent, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing to spend time planning your wedding. It's a good thing. But all these causes that we have can't they just be taken in an instant? So my next question is, will your cause last? Will your cause last? If you guys would turn with me to Philippians 1. Because in Philippians 1, Paul answers these two questions. And so I kind of wanted to dig through the passage and see what he has to say about this. In Philippians 1, verses 20 through 26, Paul says, as it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all shamed, but that with full courage now as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. Yet which shall I choose? I cannot tell. I'm hard-pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy in the faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus, because of my coming to you again. So in verse 20 and 21, Paul is looking at, Paul is basically saying, like, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. He's like, my cause, Paul's cause, is Christ. He's like, somehow in my life, Christ has to be honored. Christ has to be glorified. He's like, even in my physical body, if I'm here on earth, in my physical body, whether by life or by death, I'm going to live for the cause of Christ. To live is Christ. Last week, Ed talked about the gospel being God's gem. And that's like seeing a diamond. And I think Paul has seen the beauty of Christ like a diamond. And I'll call this the diamond effect. I think it's in your bulletin. It's the diamond effect. And the diamond effect is basically that when we see the beauty of Christ, when we see that Christ is valuable, we come to the conclusion that he is bigger and better than any other cause that we've ever come across. That when we see the beauty of Christ, when we see the value of Christ, we come to the conclusion that Christ is bigger and better than any cause that we've ever come across. It's the diamond effect. And I remember the diamond effect in my own life. It was at a vision dinner. It was the first vision dinner back in my sophomore year of college. And P.S., who here has not been to a vision dinner before? Raise your hands. Okay, we're going to come after you. You have to come to a vision dinner. Like, you have to come to them. They are starting next Monday. There's going to be 3 of them, and they're going to be incredible. Like, the vision dinner could actually change your life, completely rip your face off, like it did me. And what happened at this vision dinner was that it was the first time in my life that someone had looked at me and said, "You are the church. Like, how can you leverage your life for this campus, for campuses across the country, for this generation, for the entire world?" Like, before that, I'd been living my life doing, living after cause, like after one cause after the next, but honestly, none of them really resonated with me. Because all of those causes, the end of those causes were somehow linked to me. Like, they were just small causes. They weren't bad causes. They were just small causes. They were like the wedding planning. Nothing bad in that. It's just a small cause. But when I was at this vision dinner, it was like something it was like a diamond literally just exploded in my heart. It was like, you get to live for something bigger. Like, and not only bigger, the biggest thing. It was like the lights were finally turned on. And I started looking at my life, and in the way of, man, I have to leverage everything for that. Because this is our natural response. Our natural and the proper response to the diamond effect, or seeing the beauty of Christ, is that we have to leverage. We leverage everything. To live is Christ. So you might ask, well, what does it mean to leverage? The formal definition is to leverage is to use a quality or advantage to obtain a desired effect. To use a quality or advantage to obtain a desired effect. In short, it's basically to exert influence. After these vision dinners, I started to look at the world completely different. And I'm not saying it was like a conversion-esque moment. But there's something deep inside of me that was just like, I was born to live for this. I was created to live my life for something bigger, not for myself, not for these smaller causes, but for the greatest cause. And things started to change in my life. I would go out to the Oval and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, you guys, you're living for just smaller things. You have to live for the biggest thing. You have to live for something bigger. And then I started looking at my classes, and I was like, man, like, if I'm going to have class projects, like, I'm going to write about Jesus, and I'm going to do an interview about Jesus. Like, I love to write, and then it's like, all right, well, for some reason, I think God's given me an ability to write, so somehow I have to write and portray the hope of Christ so that people can see Christ through my writing. If I'm I had a job, and it's like, well, I'm not just here at a job just working just for the man or just for a boss. Like, I am here working, trying to leverage everything, trying to exhaust myself for Christ. Like, leveraging my relationships, leveraging old acquaintances that I had, like old high school friends, old roommates, old suite mates. Somehow, like, I have to connect with them and tell them what is going on in my life, and I have to invite them to new life or invite them out or somehow connect with them so that they can see who Christ is. And it's like the engagement ring that you give to your future spouse. Is like, once they get it, they just have to show it off. Because it's valuable. It's beautiful. So our cause is Christ. To live is Christ. I think what happens after the diamond effect is that we see the domino effect. And the domino effect is that others get swept into a bigger cause, a better story. The domino effect is that others get swept up into a bigger cause, a better story. Basically, that my leveraging and your leveraging will lead other people to leverage their life as well. And this is what I saw in my own house. I lived at the time, we lived off 12th with 6 of us guys, and one of my roommates, his name's Jeff. Jeff and I, we went to the First Vision dinner, and the same thing that happened to me happened to Jeff right at the same time. And I call Jeff kind of my spiritual twin. Like, we were born out of the same spiritual womb. And so as Jeff and I, we were just growing at the same time, and Jeff was like, man, this is what I'm learning, and I'm like, this is what I'm learning, and we were encouraging each other and kind of pushing each other forward. And as we were getting just jacked about who Christ was, we had other roommates that started getting interested. At that time, Maddie wanted to be the CEO of Ferrari and basically had Ferrari flags everywhere. And he started catching wind of like, man, there's some difference, there's a change in my roommates here. And he started coming out, getting excited, and then that diamond effect happened in him. And then all of a sudden he's like, I don't want to be a CEO of Ferrari anymore. Like, actually, I'm going to go overseas and spend a whole summer living out of a small bag, basically eating peanuts, not, just trying to see what God is doing overseas. And seeing a huge just change, a fork in the road for him, where he's like, I'm going to live my life for Christ. Everything I do is going to be somehow leveraged for that. And then a couple months after that, I saw my other roommate, Brandon, who started to see who Christ was. And then just that explosion happened in him. And then Brandon started leveraging his talents, making Oscar-winning New Life Advanced videos. And started looking at old friends from high school being like, man, they have to know Jesus. And if they do know Jesus, they have to grow. And it's just this incredible time in my life. I don't think it'll ever be replaced, because us four kind of created this incredible community where we were like, man, our house is not our own. Like, we actually, like this, we are borrowing this house. And it's like, man, we have to leverage this house. Like, no longer are we going to have keggers, but now we're like, let's invite people over. Let's have sweet music. Let's have food. Let's have, like, somehow let's connect to freshmen. Let's connect to anybody who comes in our house. Like, just everybody come in and just draw them into the community that God had created within us four. And no longer were we seeking house parties and trying to seek, just a fun time. But instead, we were going downstairs to our roommate, or downstairs to the people who live below us, and we were handing out New Life cards, trying to share our story of what had changed in our life, and trying to somehow to get them to come to church, which I still think now is just, I can't believe I did that at the time. But that's what for us, that's what it looked like to leverage. We're like, man, we've got good news and we have to share it. And I see this pattern in all four of us, that Christ is their cause, was their cause, is their cause, and will be their cause. That once you see something that is the most beautiful thing, you just can't live for anything less than that. You absolutely can't live for anything less. Now look at Jeff. And Jeff and his wife live in New York. And they lived overseas for a year with me, and then purposely decided to move to New York away, like probably 1,000 miles away or hundreds of miles away from their families, from their community, to go to seminary in order that they could learn and get an opportunity to somehow go back overseas. But they're like, man, like, we have to go back overseas. We have to leverage our lives in that way. And I look at Maddie being a part of the pit team and leaving his community. And if you have spent just about 5 minutes with Maddie, you'll come across his heart and his love for the people that he really works with. I've never seen anybody leverage their life in their workplace the way that I have with Maddie. Like constantly he's going to a barbecue, or he's hanging out with a coworker. He's inviting customers to his wedding. He just has to somehow connect people to Christ. He has to somehow hear their story. And he'll go to anything. He'll go to do anything to somehow connect with his coworkers and his customers. Even if he's just talking to a customer for 2 minutes in the drive-thru. His life emanates Christ. And then I look at Brandon. And Brandon has this incredible gift to teach and to preach. And if you spend a couple minutes with Brandon, you're going to find out what his second love is really quickly. I think it's about this girl named Sheila. Never mind. Just kidding. But he loves his wife, and he is using his marriage for Christ, leveraging his marriage for Christ. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to wedding planning, Felicia and I kind of had a conversation on Thursday, and she's like, in all the details, can't you see that Christ is in all these details? And it's that somehow this smaller cause can be absolutely leveraged for a bigger cause. And it's like, man, like, I want my wedding so much to be about Christ, but I've just missed it. And can't we all do that? Can't we all just kind of get consumed or distracted by these little things and kind of miss the bigger picture? But you might look at me and say, well, you're different. You're up here standing in front of us, or you're older, or whatever. But I was a messed up sophomore, just like most of you guys. Absolutely no different from any of you. You'll ask Maddie, you can ask Brandon, you can ask Jeff. We were messed up. Just typical college students. Absolutely no different than you. Absolutely no different than you. And the truth is that all of our lives are worthy to be leveraged for the cause of Christ. Every single person in here, your life is worthy to be leveraged for the cause of Christ. Every single person in here. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but I want you to just wrap your mind around that. It's incredible, incredible truth. But maybe you're asking, like, well, what is the end of this cause? Maybe this cause can be taken away. Maybe somehow Christ can be taken away from me, or maybe even these relationships we're talking about, or whatever. Like, maybe that fear has come across your brain. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about fear, and he was talking about fear of rejection. And basically, at I was just like, man, like at the end of the day, like what do you have to be afraid of? Like the worst that can happen is death, really. The worst that can happen to us is death. Well, let's look back at the passage here. In verse 21, Paul says, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. Yet which I shall choose I cannot tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better." So Paul's basically saying, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to leverage my life. But if I die, that's pretty sweet too. He's like, actually, that's better. That's what I would rather do. So how I look at the, verse 21 is basically to live is Christ, to die is gain. Well, I look at it as to live is Christ, to die is more of Christ. That the end of our cause is more of Christ. In 1 Corinthians 13:12, Paul, writing to the Corinthian church, is kind of talking about this concept of living here and eventually being there, being with Christ in heaven. And in verse 12, he talks about how everything here is like a dimly lit mirror. And how there in heaven, we are going to see Christ face to face. That even the diamond that we see here is just a picture. That the glory of Christ that we see here is just, it's blurred. But man, like in the future, like in death, like actually we get to see Christ in all of his glory, in the fullness of who he is. So you might ask yourself, so what does this mean? Like why is this important to know? It's important because it removes that fear. The fear of like, what if something goes wrong as I leverage my life? What do we have to be afraid of? It gives us absolute freedom to leverage our life for Christ. And I love just the last couple verses here. Paul's like, to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy in the faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus because of my coming to you again. He's like, man, absolutely. He's like, I want to be, I want to see Christ in all of his fullness. Like, death is actually gain. Like, I would rather depart and be there. But you and I right here, we're all breathing and we're all living and we're all here on earth for right now. So Paul's like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to live for your progress and for your joy in the faith and for, you to be able to glorify Christ. So, I think the question for you guys is where are you at in all of this? Like, where are you at in all of this? Is your life being leveraged for something smaller or something ultimate? This is the last question in the bulletin. Can you imagine how God could use your leveraged life? Can you imagine? Have you guys ever spent time doing that? Just imagining how God could use your life? For some reason, when I thought of the Domino Effect, I was thinking of, has anybody seen the movie V for Vendetta? He has all those dominoes set up, and then he just flicks one domino, and then one domino hits another, and hits another, and hits another, and hits another, and another, and it ends up revealing this massive picture. I think it's a massive V. But the truth is, the first domino didn't know that. The first domino had no idea what the impact of their life would be. But sometimes I think we need to just take a step back and be like, man, I can be used in this way. I have been used in this way. And maybe that's where you guys are at. Maybe you've kind of gone through, you're working hard, but you kind of maybe gone through a dry spell and you're like, man, is what I'm doing, is my life actually being leveraged? Am I actually being used? Maybe we just need to take a step back and being like, man, God has done some incredible things. Or maybe you know that Christ is the ultimate, that you know that Christ is the best and biggest thing to live for. Like you know that in your brain, but you might not actually be living that yet. You might not actually be all in with your life. There's a lot of smaller causes that kind of bury Christ in the cross. Like maybe it's your step today to say, I'm all in. All my chips are in. Like I'm gonna live for I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, basically. Like what's in here is gonna start. I'm gonna decide to allow it to start coming into here. Or maybe you just have never seen Christ as something beautiful. You've never seen Christ as something valuable. You've never seen him as a diamond. My encouragement to you is beg him to reveal himself to you. Just beg him. I guarantee it, there's a verse in, I'm not exactly sure where, but basically like, ask and seek and knock. Like, if you ask, like he'll find you. Like, just seek him with everything. And I guarantee he'll reveal himself to you. And the experiences that I had in my life, they're going to be different, but you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to ask the band to come up and just kind of lead us out in prayer. But I want you guys to really just ask yourself that last question. Can you imagine how God could use your leverage life? So I'm going to pray for us real quick. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, God, I'm humbled to be just a small domino. And God, I pray that areas of my life that are not leveraged for you, I pray, God, that you would align them with your cause. God, I pray that my life, that people would know what my cause is immediately when I meet them, God, that I would wear your cause on every part of me, Lord. God, I pray that I wouldn't hold anything back, that I wouldn't be holding anything for myself, God, but I pray that I would be all in, God. I pray that all of us here would be all in, God, that we would see that you are greater than anything else that we've come in contact with. Lord, we just thank you for who you are, Jesus.